The Dice Odyssey. Hey there, folks. Welcome back to the Dice Odyssey. I'm Kas.
Greg.
And we're here to review, to tell you about Star Trek Panic. Now, this game takes place in the Star Trek universe. Wow, that is so obvious. I don't even know why I said that. But anyway, it takes place in that universe, and it's not the next generation. It's not the new iterations that you see in the movies. It's the actual original series. Now, for those of you who didn't grow up in the 60s, that would be Captain Kirk and Spock and so on and so forth. Now, what's really cool is that they included, the Starship Enterprise. Sorry, that's
a galaxy far.
Wow, that wasn't any kind of. We're going to be butchered in the comments for that. They include the Starship Enterprise. Look at that thing right there. Woo! I can only do that so far because I'll get in trouble for it. But anyway, this game is based on, if you've ever played Castle Panic or Dead Panic, it's based on that same system. It's a cooperative game where you're all trying to keep the Starship Enterprise from being destroyed by, Romulans and Klingons and Tholians and so on and so forth. And you're actually trying to complete missions as you go, working together with the different characters in the game with their special powers. So we're going to show you how it plays, and we'll tell you our final thoughts. Stick around. Star Trek Panic takes place on kind of a grid of a board here, where it's going to be 6 sectors, 1 to 6, okay, all around the board, and it's going to have 3 quadrants each. Each, one is going to be the close, middle, and outer quadrant. I don't think that's the exact name for them, but you get the idea, okay? Now, to set up the game, you're going to be picking from one of several different Star Trek characters like Sulu, Uhura, I think I said that right, Spock, Captain Kirk, and so on and so forth. Probably one of my personal favorites is Montgomery Scott, because he can do repairs on the shields specifically and the ship. And so also every character is going to have their own special ability. So, each person at the table, since we're playing a co-op game, is going to be able to help each other out, and they're going to be distinct from each other, which is a really nice aspect of the game. What you're trying to do is you're trying to complete 5 different missions, okay? And once you complete these 5 missions represented by the mission card deck here, and basically you're just going to draw a new mission, and once that mission's completed, you're going to be able to go on to the next one. Once you complete 5 and you destroy any threats in the surrounding quadrants or sectors around your ship, you win the game, okay? Now, number 1, like I said, you're going to pick your character. You're going to get your little cheat sheet here that tells you every step of the game, every rule, every action you can take in order. And you're going to draw up to your hand limit. That's going to depend on the amount of players, okay? So, for example, I've got my hand of cards here, all right, and they can be face up because it's a cooperative game. Everybody can see what everybody else has. And then what we're going to do, and that's the first thing you're going to do, is draw up, and you're going to reveal your first mission, which I've got right here, okay? So, for example, the mission cards, they explain to you several things. First off, the parameters of the mission, what's involved, what, mission tiles you might want to add into the game. They'll tell you exactly which one it is. Could be a disabled ship. It could be an outpost that you're supposed to defend. It really is like you're doing missions straight off of the TV show itself. It's going to tell you the parameters. It's also going to tell you the reward for completing the mission, and also usually they're going to have a time limit here that's going to be represented right here. Okay, it's going to be like a time limit card, and this little blue icon or token moves according to how many turns it takes to complete this mission, okay? So that's number 1. And then you get to trade cards, okay? So everybody at the table can go ahead and decide whether or not they want to trade with you back and forth, all right? And let me show you the different kinds of cards that you've got. You've got anything from titanium, and dilithium, okay? And these are going to be used to build up shields, to rebuild or repair, to rebuild hull. You can actually combine these to do even greater repairs on the ship, okay? And also, one key thing, there's going to be some missions that require certain icons there. You see those? The gold and the other one? Well, some of these cards are also going to have the icons on them as well. And so you have to make the decision whether or not you're going to use these to repair the ship or use them toward mission. And that's going to be a strategic aspect of the game. That's how you're going to be able to complete missions, okay? Another aspect is you're also going to have things like phaser cards coming up, okay? You've got all sorts of different kinds of phaser cards, and that means everybody gets a chance to shoot, once they put these out. So, for example, let me give you an example of what phasers look like. This one here has the medium on the sides, okay? So it doesn't matter really which way the Enterprise is actually turned. This card's still going to mean the same. So, for example, medium on the sides means these quadrants here, but specifically the middle quadrant on the side of the ship, and it's both sides, same thing. Or let's say it's far, or what do you call these, long range phasers. Well, that would be all the way out, the outer quadrants on the side of the ship. Or say you got the medium range front phasers, and that's the same thing. Whichever way it's pointing, it's going to be medium range front of the ship. And so, like I said, you've got all sorts of different kinds of phaser cards that you can use. They're going to have different ranges, different things you can do. You also have photon torpedo cards. You're going to have all sorts of different kinds of cards, like boarding party cards that stop people from boarding once your shields are down, things of that nature, okay? So once you've traded, part of your hand of cards out with other people, received cards, traded them out, you're going to now play cards and maneuver. And you can play as many of your hand as you want until you can't play anymore or you decide not to, okay? Now, one thing in particular is you're going to be able to, you can do this before, for example, you can do this before you play cards or after. You can now maneuver the ship at least one time. So you can turn it that way or that way, at least one slot, okay? And again, there's many reasons you might want to do that. First off, you may be trying to go towards a mission objective, for example, and you're trying to thrust towards it. Let's say in maneuvering, let's just say we were already pointed this direction, and you wanted to thrust towards whatever this thing is here, okay, this little space station looking thing. And the idea is that you're going to want to actually move everything towards you. It's like you're moving forward, right? So let's say I want to thrust forward one. Well, that moves that one. Now, enemy ships and things like that don't necessarily do that, but, things like this do, okay, like mission objectives and so on and so forth, space stations and such. All right, so that's how you basically maneuver and thrust, okay? You cannot thrust backwards, but you can thrust forward. Now, you can't maneuver if at least 3 sections of your ship, 3 or more hull sections are destroyed. You may not maneuver until you, I'm trying to say the word heal, you actually fix that part of the ship, at least get it under 3 sections being destroyed. Now, the next step is you're going to check mission status. And all you're doing is taking a look at this card here, the mission card, and see if it has been completed. If it hasn't, you're still in the mission. You tick the timer down per turn, okay, right here. You move that down, and then you just keep on going. And now, but if it is completed on the next person's turn, they're going to reveal a new mission card on that step. But for now, let's just say it hasn't been completed. Well, what you're typically going to do then is you're going to have it. Now, I don't have any threats out here. Typically in the beginning of the game, you'd have some threats already out on the board. But right now, we're just going to get some out there to show you the next step. Threats, move, and fire. This would be the turn. If you already had some out here, they would move and fire. And so basically what that's going to look like, doesn't matter really where they are, they're going to move up 1 typically. There's some ships that have cloaking, some that behave in certain ways that I'm not going to show you here. That's in the rules. You can look that up later. But for example, you're going to have this one move forward at least 1, and he's going to fire. Now, because he's in this sector, he's firing at the shields. So what you would do is the first hit, it's going to take 1 damage, okay? That's going to be showing you've got damaged shields. You want to try to repair that if you can. But 2 hits, it actually brings your shields down. And at that point, you're like, Scotty, bring the shields back up. Actually, that would be his voice, and that was a horrible, horrible impression. Now, let's say, for the sake of argument, the shields are already down, and he had decided to go ahead and you know, we actually have the threats move and fire. Well, this time, if he fired, now, if the shields are already down, now your hull has been hit, and that's your damage on the hull, okay? But if it gets hit again, let's say this, again, I'm making hypotheticals here. Let's say he hit it again, and it was already hit the first time. Now, that means the hull has now been destroyed and needs to be rebuilt. It can't be repaired. It can be rebuilt. Rebuilt's completely different. Repair is fixing something like this. Rebuilding is fixing an actual destroyed hull, okay? And that's basically how that works. Same goes for this. One other thing you need to keep in mind also is the fact that when you have shields down on any portion of the ship, the next time the ships actually get the threats, get to actually move and fire, let's say they're going into the closest section of the ship, once they get there, they're going to do what we call a boarding action, all right? They're basically going to damage the ship once they hit your ship, but at that time, they're now removed from the board and they've done the damage that they're supposed to do at that point. Unless you have this, but at the very least, this can reduce the amount of damage that they do by one, the anti-boarding party cards, like security detail, basically. So that's another aspect of what happens when the threats move and fire. Now, the other thing is, let's say you got to bring out, the next step, you're going to draw 2 new threats, okay? And now we draw, first thing you're going to do is, I should have drawn only one, you're drawing this, okay? And what you would do is you would roll a die and you'd figure out where that goes. Like, for example, the die says 2. You put that on the 2 spot on the outer rim, okay? And now, that's not going to do anything until the next turn, but again, you have more threats on the field now, okay? Now, and again, I'm not going to do the second one, but you get the idea. Now, you're going to be playing this way round after round after round until you either complete the missions and take out all the threats, or all 6 sections of the Enterprise are destroyed. There's other ways you can lose, but that's the primary way, most likely. So anyway, let's get you back over and we'll give you our final thoughts. But all joking aside, what do I think about it? I like the Star Trek universe personally. Not as much as maybe the Star Wars universe, but...
Wow, you just did it again?
Hey, what can I say? No, I really do. I grew up watching, not necessarily the original series, but I did watch The Next Generation. I watched Deep Space Nine, which some people seem to hate for some reason. I don't know why. Come on, man. Cisco's the man, dude.
Yeah, so I watched the original back in the day.
What do we think about the components?
Oh, components are fun. I mean, you know, you have a little 3D model. They have those little tokens that you get to put on for damage. You can do that.
You can have, I mean, you can feel like a little kid, man.
It's actually a lot of fun, and it works quite well.
Now, I do love the look of this. I was kind of fascinated how they were able to make this just with the cardboard the way they did and make it as sturdy as it is in a way. You know, I mean, it has to be stuck to the base. I do like the shield icons. Now, the pieces here, the only thing I've got an issue with is you got to hold this thing down to pull a shield out when you want to show that shields are down on a section of the ship. And like he said, I love sticking the damage icons on, but you have to be really careful when you do it. So keep that in mind when you're playing with the components, but overall, bang up job. It is a little fiddly, right? But it is really cool. It's nice to be able to turn the Starship Enterprise, and I mean, you really just get into it in the game, and when you're cooperating with each other, they're like, all right, man, we're going to have, like, for example, my guy, one of my favorite guys is Montgomery Scott. You know, the engineer is going to repair the ship. So it's like when he's shooting with Pavel Chekhov, he's like,
guy.
Focus, your phaser fire on that ship. Right. And then it's like my job is to do the engineering. You really do feel like you're playing as those characters. And one thing I'll say in particular, the artwork on here, it works fine. It's decent artwork. I'm usually not a fan of live stills shots, like if it's a live action still, I kind of like artwork better, but in this game it works.
Yeah, and it brings up that vintage feeling. I mean, like you said, this is not the next generation. This is the original series.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you know, it's very aptly named Star Trek Panic because a lot of the time you're panicking. Shields are down.
Boy, are you ever.
Things are blowing up left and right. More enemies are popping up.
This is a very pristine ship, yeah. This is a very pristine ship compared to how it looks when we're playing it.
But as a cooperative game, you know, that's what makes it fun because you are kind of managing chaos. And
absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and again, if you've ever watched the show, and if you haven't even, you'll get the idea. I mean, you're sitting here and you're going, okay, man, we have to be careful. We have to, you know, scan for threats that are coming out. We have to figure out how to deal with those threats. If you're the weapon, you know, expert, which Pavel Chekhov is in this game, you know, you want to be able to figure out how best to take those threats out.
Right.
I have to figure out how to keep shields up, and we all have that opportunity with the cards that are given. But the fact is, you have special powers that give you more flexibility to do more with that.
And trading cards becomes very, very important.
Oh, yes, it does.
Timing them, and when you mess it up, you're like, oh no.
Yeah, and you feel very cooperative in the game because you're trading. You're giving. I hate to say it, everybody gives orders in the game. They're like, well, hey, maybe it would be better if you do that. You have to cooperate in this game to survive, and I love that.
Do you feel like it gets rid of that alpha gamer? Or do you think there's still a possibility with that? Like, how well do they mitigate that?
I mean, I think it mitigates it to an extent. The fact is, everybody thinks they know what's best. They really do. I mean, most people who come to play a cooperative game, at some point in the game is going to go, I know what's best.
Right.
And they're going to want to get that idea across. In this game, you're still going to run into some of that. But, you know, like I said, everybody's got a different role, so again, you can make suggestions, but ultimately that player's turn, they're going to play it out as they see fit. So yeah, there's going to be a little bit of that alpha gamer in there, but I mean, like I said, if you can play with people that aren't just trying to take control of every turn, this game's awesome. And if you can tell, I like it a lot. I really love it, and I really felt the theme came through.
Oh yeah,
I felt that so big. I have a thing about controlling systems on a starship in particular. Like if I play a video game and they have a starship, and if anybody's ever played Faster Than Light FTL, where you're having to micromanage every system, you're trying to keep oxygen on and light, or life support, same thing. You're trying to keep shields up. You're trying to keep borders from coming on. Right. This game has a lot of that feel. It's a lot of micromanaging the system, and you really do feel like you're on a starship trying to stop fires from happening from, you know, the explosions that are happening on your ship. You're trying to bring shields up. You're trying to triangulate and turn the ship.
And you're trying to move the ship to mitigate threats as well. Like, oh, my shields are down here.
They're up on this side.
This side, let's turn the ship.
And so try to get them to hit those shields instead of hitting the hull.
Right.
Right? And so, yeah, I absolutely like that.
You know the thing I really like, though, too? So you play like a series of missions, right? So instead of like, oh, your ship gets magically repaired in between missions, you're hobbling out of one and immediately going to the next one going, I don't know how we're going to do this.
Oh, we're beat up.
We actually made it through like three or almost
several missions
in the fourth one, and surprisingly did not destroy the ship.
Yeah, but I think it's also because the missions we were choosing weren't quite as hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are going to be some missions that are harder than others. I like the idea of the missions too. I also like the idea of the actual Enterprise deck cards that you get. You know, the trilithium, the dilithium, where you have to either figure out if you want to repair shields or hull, or mix them to actually rebuild shields or hull, which is a lot more work, and it brings up more health points, life points on your ship, so to speak.
And I like the randomness. After your turn, you have to draw new threats. You don't really know what's going to come out.
Right.
Like we got nailed by a comet.
Twice!
Which is something you don't really expect. Yeah, twice. Good point.
The good thing is it wipes out other ships in its path before it hits you. So
there are other things that might make you change the facing of your ship, and it's a really creative way of just throwing some randomness in. Not bad kind of randomness, but the good kind.
Yeah.
So, you know, you just don't really know what you're going to get.
Yeah, and it comes down to card play ultimately. It comes down to card play, what's on the board. But the fact is that the other thing I liked about the card play was that even some of those cards that you need to use, that's the thing. You have to make some seriously strategic decisions, because sometimes the cards you need to use for, say, repairing the ship, or I don't know if Repelling Borders has it, because you have repelling boarding cards, because they can do boarding parties on your ship to destroy more of the ship, cause more damage. But I like the fact that you have to use these cards for missions. You have to commit very specific cards and missions, and boy, can that be painful at times.
Yeah.
Because you might need that, like you said, you're hobbling out of one mission going to another. You might need that to repair your ship, but yet you had to use that very valuable card to deal with the mission itself.
Right. Or vice versa. You know?
Yeah.
You can make a mistake of, oh, I fixed my ship, but now I can't finish the mission, and then you're just hoping, somebody draws the card you need.
And see, if you can complete missions and your ship's seriously hobbled, you're feeling like a boss because you're like, yeah, look what we did. Our shields were halfway down, or most of the shields are down, our ship's halfway destroyed, but look at what we did here. It makes you feel good. It gives you a sense of accomplishment to actually complete
And then
missions.
a battleship pops up, and you're like,
oh, not again. But see, that again, you have to strategically think. Like he said, the panic part on the box here is absolutely correct. Panic, you were doing that for most of the game.
And you know what's funny about that is I did not realize, this is how well this plays to me, is I've seen Castle Panic play before, and I didn't realize till today, and you said, oh yeah, it's like Castle. I was like, oh, it's the same type of franchise.
Yeah.
It has such a great mechanic of the ship moving, and it was different enough. I never even made the connection until you said it.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is very well done.
So it becomes its own beast, so to speak. And so, and also another thing, I do like how it scales. We've played it 2-player. We've played it higher numbers. And no matter what, the time doesn't really go up way too high because you're all still working with the same deal. You're not doing your own thing. You all has to still figure out how to deal with the threats, how to deal with the mission. You're all working toward the same goal.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I do like about cooperative games in general, is the fact that a lot of the times you're not really upping the time with more people involved, because you all typically have to work for the same goal. And this game exemplifies that probably more so than most, and I really love that about it. So, ultimately, what do I think about it? Beard rating scale. Is this one of my favorite co-ops? It's close. It's up there. I think, man, I'm giving this out a lot lately. This one for me, personally, because I like the theme. I feel that it comes through in the cards. I feel it comes through in the maneuvering of the ship and bringing shields up and down. This one for me gets it probably about, it's close to a full beard. It's about a medium beard rating. An 8.5. I really, really like this game. Is this a game that I want to pull out pretty regularly? I probably will. I was just even thinking about it today. I'd love to even play it today if we had more people. Heck, I'd play it with you.
Yep.
If it was just me and him.
Yeah. I feel bad for giving games 8s, but I think to get to a 9 and especially to a 10, it takes like just almost utter perfection.
Almost perfection.
9 is right on the cusp. This is an 8. It's an easily solid 8.
Solid 8. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much what we think of it. Like I said, the only drawbacks really are the kind of fiddly components are great, but at the same time, pulling them off and putting these pieces on, you have to be extra careful to damage parts of the ship.
If you have a giant meat hand, you have to be careful you don't rip the engine.
I got a giant meat hand, so yeah, that's a knock on my hands. But the fact is, it's the truth. If you got giant meat hands, it might be a little difficult, and you have to be careful. So yeah, love this game. Think it's great. I think it carries the Star Trek license very well. Yeah. And I think if you like Star Trek, even if you don't, you might even like this game. If you just like ship battles, dealing with things like that, and micromanaging systems, trying to keep things running on your ship and keeping it from being blown out of the, I was about to say the sky, but out of space. I think you'll like it. So yeah, high praise from me.
High praise from me. I think you made up a really good point. They did do, I think, the Star Trek universe justice, and that's high praise.
The missions now that's one last thing. The missions bring that theme out as well. I mean, you got everything from disabled ship missions to, all sorts of different things that you can do.
Are they all based? I think they are. I think they're all based off actual episodes from the original, which is awesome. Yeah, they're all based off different the older series episodes, which is awesome. So yeah. But anyway, that's going to be all for us. Thank you so much. Fireside Games, by the way, is the developer, and it's USAopoly, I believe, is the publisher. They're knocking it out of the park with the Panic series. By the way, have you played Star Trek Panic, or have you played actually Castle Panic or Dead Panic, any of the Panic series, Dead Panic? What do you think about it? What's your favorite cooperative game? Does this thing meet the snuff? If you could suggest another Panic game, what would it be?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for watching the Dice Odyssey. I'm Kas.
I'm still Greg.
He sure is. And we appreciate you. You have a blessed day, and game away.